Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson where I'm going to talk about aging. So, aging is the process whereby we get old. Those are a lot of big words, aren't they? It's the process of getting old as you go through life. Aging is something that I'm slowly becoming an expert on as time goes by. When I was younger, when I was in my teens, or when I was in my 20s, I didn't know a lot about aging. But certainly now that I am 50, I am starting to become an expert on aging, which again is the process of getting older. So in this English lesson, I'll teach you some words and phrases that you could use to talk about aging. The biggest question that I got a few messages from people saying that I spelled the word aging wrong, that it has an E in it. So I put some flags here for you. The word aging has two spellings in English. You can say aging or aging, they're pronounced the same. But if you are in America and most of Canada, you would spell it without an E. It sounds to me from my research that if you live in Britain, or some Canadians still spell it with an E. So it's not a typo on the title. Aging can be spelled without an E in North America or with an E. So just kind of pay attention to where you are. And again, to define aging, aging is the process of getting older. As time goes by, humans get older, other animals get older, but aging is that process. The aging process, some people say the aging process is not kind. You get older, you get wiser, but physically things get more difficult to do. We have a few other ways to talk about this. Probably the most common way that we describe it is getting old. Like, yes, my mom is getting old, or I'm getting old. We sometimes say feeling old as well. It's pretty common for me to work on the farm all day, and at the end of the day, I'm sore, and I say to Jen, "Oh, I'm getting old," or I might say, "Oh, I'm feeling old today." But getting old is probably the most common one. You know, my parents are getting old. They might need to move into a retirement home. Or, wow, I'm getting old. Soon I will be retired. Old age is another way to describe it. So as you approach old age, we talk about old age when we talk about ourselves as something in the future. So as someone who is 50, I would say that I'm approaching old age. In about 10 or 15 years, I might describe myself as being old, but right now I'm approaching old age. Even though my hair is gray, even here, I still am not considered old. Let's see here. Over the hill. So this used to be when you were over the age of 40, but I'm wondering now if over the hill is actually closer to 45 or 50. We use the phrase over the hill to talk about being halfway through your life. Usually on your 40th birthday, people will say, you're over the hill now. And it's a phrase kind of describing that life is a hill and you climb up. And then when you get to the top, you're over the hill. So it really is just a unique English phrase for referring to the halfway point in your life. I would be considered over the hill if you were talking to me in English. And then, of course, gray hair. Now, gray has two spellings as well. You can spell it Gray or Grey. In Canada, both spellings are acceptable. But certainly, you can see by example, I can't even point to the right side of my head, that my hair is getting gray. Gray hair is a very common thing. And then mentioned in the chat, and I forgot to put a slide up, is that people get bald. Men suffer from baldness as they get older. I'm a little worried. I'm not sure if that's a bald spot right there. You see this little white line? It might just be hair that's a little more gray. It's hard to look at it, but I might be starting to bald. I don't think, I don't know. My mom's dad, my grandfather on my mom's side, had a full head of hair and he lived to be in his 70s. So I hope that genetically I take after him. We'll have to see. So far, so good. I'm not balding. Anyways, gray hair, definitely a sign of getting older. And then wrinkles. If I was to zoom the camera way in, you would notice that I have wrinkles beside my eyes. You can see a few wrinkles on my forehead. If I try to raise my eyebrows, I'm probably freaking everyone out. But as you get older, you get more and more wrinkles. So I actually think wrinkles are kind of cool. I know some people like to put cream on and they like to try to stop the wrinkles. But I figure as I age, as I get older, as I approach old age, it's just going to be par for the course, is what we would say. You're going to get wrinkles. You can't really stop them. And then you might lose your teeth. This is becoming less common in many parts of the world because we have fluoride in our water and we have fluoride in our toothpaste. Like for myself, I still have all my teeth. My dad and my uncles, most of them didn't have their teeth when they were older. Their teeth slowly, I guess they had them pulled, and then they got what's called dentures or false teeth. So not as common, still common in some places in the world. As you get older, you might lose your teeth, but becoming less common. And then yes, you would wear either false teeth or dentures. So my dad had his bottom teeth, but he wore false teeth. His top teeth, he had false teeth. So it was always funny because he would a lot of times take his false teeth out and put them in his pocket. I don't know why. And then sometimes they would fall out of his pocket. So anyways, just a funny story about my dad and his false teeth. I've tried to take really good care of my teeth. I go to the dentist regularly, so hopefully I don't end up with false teeth. But if I do, I do. And then probably the biggest thing as you age, one of the things that happens when you are aging is you have aches and pains. Sometimes they are mysterious. Sometimes your shoulder hurts or your knee hurts or your hip hurts and you don't know why. You don't remember what you did. Maybe you just did a quick movement. I know a year ago, I turned my head really fast and all of a sudden I had a pain in my neck. And I don't know, I didn't really do anything to deserve that. And then of course, poor eyesight. I have my reading glasses here. A number of years ago, put these on for a sec. A number of years ago, I didn't need reading glasses. I could read without glasses, no problem. But slowly but surely, my vision when trying to read things started to fade. Like if I had to read something this small, I'm not sure if it's going to focus on that. It might. No, it likes my face better. If I had to focus on something that small, right now I need reading glasses to read something like that. So poor eyesight can happen at any age, but definitely starts to happen a bit more as you get older. So we have a phrase in English, to age gracefully. And what this kind of refers to is that you just take aging as something normal in life, that you don't try to fight it. You try to stay healthy, you eat healthy and you exercise, but that you're okay with all of the things that happen as you get older. I'm trying to age gracefully. I'm looking forward to eating healthy and exercising, but if at a certain point in my life, I'm not able to do certain things, I hope that I can accept them. Hopefully you understood that phrase, to age gracefully. And then of course there's retirement. So there are some things that are actually cool about aging. There are some things that are cool about getting older. And one of those is that eventually you don't need to work anymore. It depends on how well you've planned for retirement. It might depend on whether your children, as they get older, are going to take care of you. But retirement is certainly something a lot of older people I work with look forward to retirement. They are excited about retirement. Some of them can't wait to retire in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. When am I going to retire? I don't know. I think I like working too much. I think I might go all the way to 65, maybe even a year or two. I will most likely, though, work a bit less. I might semi-retire. When you semi-retire, it means that you work half-time or you work part-time. There are a lot of teachers that do this. Instead of teaching full-time, they semi-retire and then they just teach 1 or 2 classes each semester. That might be an interesting solution for me. Free time. So one thing that Jen and I don't have a lot of right now is free time. Jen and I have 5 children. We both work. Jen runs the flower farm. I'm a teacher and I do YouTube. We do that because we need to provide for our family. It's important when you're a parent to work so that you have money to buy food and to have a house and those kinds of things. But Jen and I are both looking forward to, already in about 10 years, we'll have a little more free time. For sure, in about 15 years, when I'm 65, we will have a bit more free time. So that is one of the positive and cool things about aging. You also hopefully will have a pension. Now, this depends on what country you live in. It depends on what job you had. Teachers actually have a fairly nice pension plan. It's not amazing, but when I'm paid at work, a small amount of my paycheck automatically goes into a pension plan. And when I retire, I will get a certain amount of money every month from my pension plan. So another bonus or benefit of aging is that eventually you retire and you have a pension. There are a lot of names for the place where you can live when you're older. We call them old age homes or retirement homes. And there's kind of 2 types of homes you can move into. What I mean by old age home or retirement home is a place you move into when you're old, and you usually have a small apartment, and you live in the same building as many other older people, okay? Generally, an old age home or retirement home is a place you move to when you're still healthy or relatively healthy. But if you are old and you need care, you will probably move into a nursing home or a care home. Again, I'm not sure what it's like in the rest of the world. In Canada, we have many, many names for these places. We call it the old age home, the retirement home, the nursing home, the care home. We also call it the old folks home, or we call it a home. So you might hear people my age. So in a few years, my brothers and sisters and I will probably start to talk about whether we should talk to my mom about moving into a home, which doesn't mean a house. When you talk about an old person and you talk about whether they should move into a home, you're talking about an old age home, retirement home, nursing home, care home, or old folks home. My mom has her own house, but at some point in the future, because she's aging just like the rest of us, she will probably start to think about moving into an old folks home. Some of her friends already live in a retirement home, so we'll see. And when I said there's a lot of names, there's a lot of different names. We call it a retirement village. We call it an old age village, an old age home, a care home. It seems to me like there's 6 or 7 names for them. But anyways, sounds like they're fun places to live, especially when you're able to play cards with other people and do some of your hobbies and enjoy the company. Probably a lot more challenging if you are in a nursing home or care home and need regular care. So again, a nursing home or care home will probably have nurses there every day. They will probably have a doctor that comes every day. And it's for people who just physically need help. Because now we're flipping to some of the negatives. As you get older, you become less agile. When you're agile, it means you can move quickly. Like someone who's agile, if I dropped, let's say my glasses, they fell and I caught them, I would be able to catch them because I'm agile. I can still move quickly and do things. But as you get older, you become less agile. I've already started to experience this a little bit. I need to stretch a lot more after I exercise. You become less attentive. So physically, your body changes as you age. The aging process, your body just gets older, but your mind as well can start to deteriorate a little bit. And you might have trouble paying attention to the things that are happening around you. We also have a phrase in English, to be with it or to be less with it. Sometimes as people get older, and this is kind of sad, they have trouble thinking and doing the things they normally do. And we might say they're less with it. When you're less with it, maybe you can't remember where you put your car keys all the time. Maybe you're always losing things. We would say that you're just not that with it, or you're less with it. That's something I do not look forward to as I age. I do not want to become less attentive or less with it. That scares me a lot. And then I used this phrase earlier. I want to be young at heart all the time. So you can see these two people are on swings, something that normally children would go on. But this couple is obviously young at heart. They're an older couple. You can tell by the gray hair, and you can tell that they've gone for a walk. They're probably at the playground, and they decided to sit on the swings and swing back and forth. So they're doing something that children normally do. So I would say they are young at heart. And then when people live a really long time, we describe it as that they lived to a ripe old age. About half a year ago, someone that I knew who was in their 90s passed away. And you would say they lived to the ripe old age of 92, or they lived to a ripe old age. So it's kind of funny because you use ripe to describe fruit, right? When fruit grows, eventually it's ripe and you can pick it. But we also use this phrase to talk about people who live a very long time. Like, oh, he lived to the ripe old age of 97, or he lived to a ripe old age. He was 102 when he passed away. That's how old I want to be, 102. I don't think that's going to happen. We have a few different words for describing people who are old. We might say that they are a senior. We might say that they are a senior citizen. Basically, the word senior in English means anyone who is over 60, 65, we would call a senior. As soon as you're close to retirement age, we would say that you're a senior. And I think you get some discounts. There's some restaurants where seniors get 5% off on Tuesday mornings. There's some stores where you get a senior discount, where if you're 65 or older, you get a discount. So being a senior has its perks as well. And then senior citizen, I think, is just a longer way of saying senior. You know, there's a lot of senior citizens that voted in our election this week because seniors really like to vote, which is good. I wish everyone voted more. And then we have the phrase elderly. For me, the word elderly refers to someone who is like in their late 70s or 80s or 90s. When I think of an elderly person, I think of someone who's really, really old. When I think of someone in their 60s or 70s, I would just say they're seniors or senior citizens. And don't quote me on this. This is just my definition. But definitely when I think of someone who is elderly, I think of someone who has trouble walking, maybe has trouble like even doing buttons on their shirt. That's what I think of when I think of someone who is elderly. You'll notice I've been talking about positive things and negative things about the aging process. When you get older, one of the negative things is you might experience loneliness. If you are married and have children, it still doesn't guarantee that you won't be lonely when you're older. Sometimes your spouse gets sick and passes away. Sometimes kids don't talk to their older parents. And sometimes older people end up living and not seeing people very often. I personally think it's very important to visit older people all the time. And I say that because when I'm old, I want people to visit me. I do not want to experience loneliness when I am older. I think it's important for old people, anyone actually, to have hobbies. You can see this couple, it looks like they've started to learn to dance. I would hope that when I'm older, I can do something like that as well. Learn new things, learn new hobbies, learn new games to play with the people that are around me. And I think it's important to stay active. In English, we often use the phrase, you need to keep busy or you need to stay active. When you say keep busy, it means that you have things to do. It means that you find things to fill your day. My mom volunteers. I'll talk about volunteering later. She doesn't have a job anymore, but she does go and she works in a thrift store. And my mom tries to stay active. She tries to walk every day and those kinds of things. So I think staying active and keeping busy, when you stay active, it's good for your body. When you keep busy, it's good for your brain. As I mentioned, a lot of younger, older people, see, I hope that made sense to you. People who retire at age 60 or 65 will often immediately start to travel if they have enough money to do that. Because when you're 65, you're usually physically able to go on airplanes and walk around large cities. It's fun to be a tourist when you are retired and when you're still healthy enough to do those kinds of things. So a lot of people who retire will immediately travel before they get so old that it becomes difficult for them. So definitely a common activity. Another thing that happens as you age, one of the things about the aging process or aging is that you end up taking more and more medication. So you might be taking medication for high blood pressure. You might be taking medication because you had heart surgery in the past. You might be taking medication so that you don't have to have heart surgery. You might be taking medication to bring your cholesterol down. So those of you that work in the medical field are aware that as people get older, they definitely start to take more medications. So medicine, pills, drugs, medication, there's a lot of words for it in English. You might need to use a cane. You might need to use a cane because one of your hips doesn't work very well anymore, or maybe one of your knees doesn't work well, or you're just having trouble keeping your balance. And you might need a cane when you walk. This is something that I used a long time ago. When I was a kid, I actually sprained my ankle really badly, and I had to use a cane for 4 weeks. It was interesting. I felt like I was old, even though I was quite young. You might need a caregiver. So if your health problems are really serious, you might need a nurse or someone who is called a caregiver to come and visit you in your home every day. Maybe you are on certain medications that they have to give you with a needle. Maybe you just need help getting dressed or going to the washroom. You might have a caregiver that either lives in your home or comes and visits you. This is not super common. It's usually for people who have really serious illnesses when they're older, but you might have someone that we would call a caregiver. I really like this guy. I like this picture. You might have to take a regular driving test. I believe in Ontario, Canada, when you are 80 years old, if you want to keep your driver's license, you have to go for a test every 2 years. I'll double check that later, but I'm pretty sure that's the law in many provinces in Canada. So if you're 80 and you're still driving, every 2 years you have to go for a vision test, and you might have to actually go for an in-car test. You might have the instructor sit beside you, and you might have to go for an in-car test. But certainly as you get older, regular driving tests are important. You might go to the doctor for a regular checkup. This is something most people start doing at age 50 or 55. Instead of waiting until you feel sick, you usually go to the doctor once every year or every 2 years for a regular checkup. I don't go for a regular checkup to my normal doctor. I go to a heart doctor for a regular checkup every year. But certainly one of the things that happens as you age, one of the things that's common for all people who are aging is that you need to go to the doctor more often. You might need things like hip replacements or knee replacements. I put these two on here in particular because most of the older people I know, well, not most, a lot of older people I know at some point get a hip replacement. So they get their hip replaced with a metal ball and pin, or they get a knee replacement. I think these are the two most common surgeries that I've heard of. I know some people have shoulder surgery, but generally I'll hear things like, oh, did you hear Aunt Julie had hip replacement surgery, or Uncle John had knee replacement surgery. Very, very common in North America, and I would imagine in other parts of the world as well. So hip replacement and knee replacement. And then heart surgery is quite common. I had heart surgery not because I was old. I had heart surgery because I had a valve in my heart that wasn't working properly. But it is fairly common in North America for people when they get older to have heart problems. They might have heart disease, and at some point they might need heart surgery. And then back to a more positive aspect, as I mentioned, older people sometimes volunteer. They retire, but they want to keep busy. They want to do something so that they can get out of the house. That's another common English phrase. My mom likes to keep busy. She volunteers because she likes to get out of the house. And so she volunteers at a thrift store. A thrift store is a place where people donate old clothing and books and household items. And then the thrift store cleans them up and sells them. And then the money is usually used for a charity or good cause. Like the money goes towards researching cancer or heart disease and those kinds of things. So a lot of older people will volunteer. And then, of course, it's nice to spend time with family. A lot of people, as they are aging, they realize that family is very important to them. And so as they eventually semi-retire or retire, they try to spend more time with family, especially if they have grandkids. It's very common in all places in the world for grandparents to spend time with grandkids. It's a lot of fun, I think, for grandparents to take care of grandkids, and then they're not totally in charge of them. You can give them back to your parents at the end of the day, to their parents, and you don't have to worry about them anymore. So spending time with family is a very, very common thing for people to do as they get older.